There are a couple ways you can go about inserting images into your report. And to do that, let's go to the Design View by coming up here, right-clicking on the tab, Design View. As you recall in an earlier training video, the Design View has these bars here that are known as sections. And it's important that we know this because when it comes to inserting our labels, text boxes, images, whatever, it'll tell us, depending upon which section we put it in, where on the report it's going to appear and how many times. So a brief overview, if I want to insert my image into the report header section, where is that going to appear on the report? Well, it's going to appear up at the top of the first page in the report because it's heading the report, hence report header, and that's the only place it'll appear. If I want it at the top of each page, put it in or insert it into the page header section. Then we got department code header, so it's going to group our records by department. And if you want it next to each department name, then put it right there. If you want it next to each record in the report, you can put it right there. Or at the end, after it groups it by department name, at the bottom of that group, you can insert the image there. Or at the bottom of each page, like next to the today's date or the page number, put it somewhere in here. Or at the very end of the report, like with the grand total, you can put the image there. But to keep it simple, I'm going to insert the image in my report header. So again, it only appears on the first page up at the top, heading the report. And to do that, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can come up here on the Design tab and, well, there's the Insert Image, but I'll do that last because the other way, let's go and click on Controls and find the Image control. There it is. You can see when I hover over it, it says Image in the pop-up. It's got a picture of a sun, a mountain, so it's a picture. And it's got the monitors, so if you want to insert a picture into your application, let's go ahead and click on it. Hover over the grid where you want to insert it. And you'll see you got a plus sign, which means when you click, it's going to add something. What is it going to add? Well, that little icon below it that indicates that it's going to be an image. So when you click, automatically opens up the Insert Picture window and it says, okay, where's this picture? So if you want to look for it over in the navigation pane, like it's somewhere on your desktop, select Desktop. Over in the main view, it's in my Exercises folder, double click in, there you go. Now, if you can't see it within the folder and you know it's there, you probably have to change the file type. Click on the drop down arrow because if it's something like bitmaps where this is a PNG file, it disappears because it's only looking for the extension bitmap. So click on the drop down arrow. And by the way, if you want to learn more about extensions, you can watch my Windows training video on extensions. In any case, if you want to see everything and not mess with it, then just select all files and it shows you the image and everything else in that folder, like the current database we're in, the report basics. So let's go ahead and double click on our image to insert it, and that's all fuzzy here. It's not nice and smooth as we saw it before we inserted it. And so that's one way to insert your image, but like I said, it doesn't look good, right? As opposed to, let me go ahead with it selected, hit the delete key, coming back up here and clicking on the insert image. Hey, look at that, it's already there. Well, before I started my training video, I inserted it from the drop-down arrow so it remembers it in this session. So I can go ahead and click on it, or if it's not there, click on Browse. In the Exercises folder, it's not there. Why? Because it's not looking for that extension. Click on the drop-down arrow and select All Files, and there we go. Double-click and opens it up. I got my little plus sign, go ahead and click to add it, and hey, doesn't that look nice and shiny and smooth, and shadow actually looks like a shadow, not something pixelated? Great! After you insert it, maybe you want to resize it, make it bigger, and to do that, if you hover over these little square boxes, they're known as resizing handles, that when you hover over one, they're at the corners and also in the middle of the sides, that when you see arrows pointing in opposite directions, you can click and drag to make it bigger that way, more horizontally, or do it in the corner here. And if you're running out of space, as you stretch it, it'll push the other section down and the corresponding sections, or you can hover over the top bar of the next section until you can see arrows pointing up and down, click and drag to push it down. And then you can see your teeny tiny little resizing handles. Now you can do it that way, or if you want to resize it perfectly or numerically, you want to actually type in the numbers, you want to bring up the property sheet, and you can do that with a double click. And there we go, the property sheet for the image. There's the width and the height. And it's not exactly perfect, is it? So if I come in here and I say, okay, maybe it's a little too big. For the width, it'll be 1¼ hit the tab key. And let's do 1.25 for the height, hit the tab key. Alrighty, let me click and drag and move that over here. Now, while we're here, how about if we take a look at the size mode? Something that I think you might find interesting. So let me click in it and click on the drop down arrow, and you have 3 types of size modes. You have clip, stretch, and zoom. The stretch will stretch the image to fit the text box the way that we sized it in there. Zoom to fit in the box, and clip will clip the picture to fit within the box. So like the clip, if the image is 5 inches by 5 inches and we shrink it down to a 1/2 inch, it'll clip off everything outside of that 1/2 inch box because it can't squeeze in there. So it's not zooming in to fit it. Or when we inserted it and we stretched the box out, but the image is so tiny it can't fit it, it can't stretch to fill in the gap, well, you can choose stretch. In any case, let's go ahead and select clip, and you can see it clipped part of it off, not entirely. And you don't have to click on the drop down arrow to be able to choose the others. You can actually toggle by double clicking. Oh, there's stretch. Oh, that's nice. It made the background transparent. Oh, that's fancy. I like that. Let's go with that. Let me go ahead and hover over the bottom right hand corner, click and drag to push it up and in because I just want this guy to fit right next to the title of our report. Okay, and it looks kind of squashed, and so I can look at the width and height and go, okay, that's a 1/2 inch and that's a little bit less than a 1/2 inch. So let's just go 0.45, enter, come back up here and do 0.45, enter. All right, let's take a look at it. Come up here, right click on the tab, go to the print preview. Okay, something's happening with the computer. When it's stretched, it's supposed to have a transparent background. Well, it's not working now, but hopefully it'll work for you. And plus I got this huge gap here. Well, that's a problem. Let's go ahead and right click, go to the design view, and let's see if we can refresh this and go from stretch to zoom to clip to stretch, close out, and then maybe that refreshed it, we'll find out. Hover over the top of the page header bar until I can see arrows pointing up and down, click and drag to really get it nice and snug so I don't have this huge gap. And let's go ahead and right click and go to the report view. Oh hey, there we go, it works in the report view where it gets rid of that background. Oh, that's nice. The background image is any image you want to insert into your report that will appear in the background, centered on every single page. But it may involve some prep work on your part, well, the image that is, because if you insert an image that's big, bad, bold, and beautiful right in the middle, you may not be able to see the data in front of the image. So you may want to Photoshop that bad boy, bleach it out, so it's not so bold. That way you can read the data in front of the image. Now, why would you want to insert an image into the background? Sometimes people do it with text, and so if it's top secret and you have these pages printed off and you're flipping through it and every page says top secret, okay, maybe you should keep it top secret. Or it could say draft or don't print, or maybe it's a logo for your company or a picture of a product that you want on every single page. So it's one way you can identify the immediate purpose of the report or how to handle it, like with care or secrecy. And so to go ahead and insert an image into the background of our report, come up here with me, good neighbor, and right click on the tab, go to the design view, and oh, before I do that, I'm getting an ADD moment, meaning that I'm looking at the background here and it's a light gray color. How would you like to learn how to change colors within your sections here? Well, you have no choice. I'm going to show it to you anyways. So to do it for this section here, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can either go ahead and double click on the report header bar to bring up the properties for that section. So double click, and so what you do here that I'm going to show you applies to all the other sections. It's the same steps. Then come over to the property sheet and we're looking at the back color. Right now it's text to lighter 80%. Well, what's that? Go ahead and click in it so you can see the build button. Click on the build button and there it is right there. Hover over it and the pop-up says it's actually blue-gray. It cut the prefix off for the first part of it. And then it says text to lighter 80%. So if you want to change it to another color like that, oh, that's nice. Let's go ahead and check that out. Close out of that. Cool. Or if you don't want to open up the property sheet, you can actually right-click in the section, go to Fill Back Color, And that works as well. Maybe something, oh, let's do something like purple. Okay, that's too much. Can we undo that? Oh, good. Either way. Now next, let's go ahead and insert the image into our report as a background. And to do that, I want to come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the background group, and right there, background image. Click on it. And since I already was messing in here before I started the training video by inserting an image, it shows up here. Now you can insert an image either in the background or from the Design tab, Insert Image. And once you insert it, either the background or from the Insert Image here, it will remember it, at least for this session. So it's already there, but I don't want to insert an image here. I want to go to the Format and do it as a background. And so I can click on it. Since it's there, it inserts it. Let me undo that, because if it's not there, then click on the drop-down arrow and browse for it. So you can use the navigation pane. If it's on the desktop, select it, then come over here in the main window, your desktop, and it's in my exercises folder, double click. If you can't see it, then you probably don't have it set to look for it. So click on the type arrow and say you want to see all files, and there it is. Double click on it and it adds it. And it's not going to be good because that image is bold. It's not bleached, but that's the purpose of the training video, to show you what it looks like if you don't bleach your image here. And how are we going to check on that? Well, let's go ahead and right click and go to the report view. And oh, looky there. I can read the data as clear as day, but I can't see the image. And we got these data fields that have the white background, so it's over on top of the image. Okay, so that's the report view. How about when I print it off? Because what you see in the print preview is what's going to come out of your printer. So let's right click and go to the print preview. And we need to scroll over just a bit down. So, oh, that's horrifying. Look at that. I can't even see it at all. So the data is just totally blocking out. So what's the purpose of inserting a background image if you can't see it in the report? So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and right click, go back to the design view and make some changes here. So first thing is these fields, the background color is white, and so with that in front of it, I'm not able to see the image behind it. So let's go ahead and select these three fields, because those are the only ones that is in the way here. The department name is over far left enough that it's not over the image, so we don't have to worry about that. So to select these three fields, let's go ahead and start over to the far left and marquee them, as we talked about in an earlier training video. Just click and drag a line through the fields, let go, and it selects all three. And let's go ahead and bring up the property sheet for the three text boxes by coming up to the Design tab, going to the Tools group, click on Property Sheet, and we're on the Format tab, which is good because it eliminates all the fields that are available. We just want to focus on the formatting fields, which still looks like a lot. And we want to look at the back style from normal, click inside of it, click on the drop-down arrow, and we want to make it transparent. Close out, and looky there, I can see right through. Well, let's really looky there by right-clicking on the tab and going to our print preview. Okay, we can see more of it, but we still have what are called these alternating row colors, and you know what? We also have this summary department code that's in the way as well. Oh, that's annoying. We'll address these alternating row colors in just a minute, but let's get rid of this. Right-click, go to the Design View, and it's this box right here, the department code footer. And so we want to go ahead and double click on the border to bring up the property sheet. We're on the Format tab. Nice. Let's go ahead and back style, double click to transparent. Like I said, you can just double click to toggle between the options that are available as opposed to clicking on the drop down arrow. And then let's go ahead and right click, go to the print preview. Okay, now we got a line going through it. So we got rid of the color, made it transparent, but we still have a line around the border of the box. Right click, go back to the design view. Phew, this is a lot of work. And with it still selected, we've got the border style that's solid. Let's click in there and click on the drop down arrow and make it transparent. And then let's come up here, right click on the tab, go to the print preview, and hey, the line's gone. Nice. The only thing we're dealing with now is the alternating row color here. So we've got every other record is going to be in gray and the others are going to be transparent. So that way it helps us when we're reading the report, these banded rows, where when I'm reading one row, my eyes don't ski waver down below, because if I get outside of the gray area into something else, I'm not in the gray, right? Of course, it works for the transparent. If I'm reading this row and my eyes start moving up, I'm like, oh, not in the transparent, I'm in the gray, top or bottom. So if that doesn't bother you as much as wanting to be able to see your background image, you can get rid of the alternating color for these records here, the banded row color. That way, when we make it transparent, we'll be able to see the image here. So to do that, let's right-click, go to the Design View, and we're going to be doing it for the Details section. The other sections have their own banded colors, if at all, like the department name. So let's go ahead and click on the Detail bar, and the property sheet's already up. So the properties for the Details section, after I select that bar, and you can see up here, the drop down, I've got it selected as opposed to something else. It doesn't say Detail. So I can click on the drop down arrow. It's sorted alphabetically. Go right to the Detail. There's Detail, and it selects it. So I have the Details section selected. Then just come over here on the Format tab, and you can go to the All tab, and it shows additional fields. But since we're dealing with formatting only, we can narrow it down. And we're looking at the alternate background color, and there it is, background 1, darker 5%. Go ahead and click on it, and then click on its build button, and that's what's selected right there. White background 1, darker 5%. Hey, just for fun, let's go ahead and choose something else, something kooky. Let's be bold and dangerous. Go ahead and select it instead of making it transparent, and let's see what it looks like. When I right-click and go to the print preview, oh, that's horrifying. Undo, undo, right-click, go back to the design view, and instead of that, let's go ahead and click on the build button and say no color. All right, right-click, go to the print preview. Hey, there you go. We don't see those banded rows here. Nice. The only problem is that my image isn't washed out. It's bold and beautiful, so it's a little bit hard to see some of these numbers here. In any case, it's a good point that you want to bleach your image, so it's enough that you can identify it or make it out, but not too bold that you can't read the data in front of it. And let's go ahead and click on it once to zoom out, and there you go. Now you can see it really centered right smack in the middle of the first page. Well, it's the only page that we have here. But if we had additional pages, we go through and see the image right in the middle of all the other pages. Now, why would you want to add a hyperlink to your report? Well, if your report is referencing other things, like other files that you want to be able to pull up when you're looking at the numbers within the report, or maybe another web page that you want to pull up, I want to show you how you can insert that as a hyperlink, so that way you don't have to keep track of it all, as it were, when you pull up this report and go, oh fudge. Now let's see, I need to open up that file because it talks about some of the things in this report. Go to that website so I can compare it to this report. Instead, just do it once. To insert them as hyperlinks, like up here at the top in the report header. You can actually choose where you want to insert them, but for me, the best is in the report header section. So to insert your hyperlinks to these other references, as it were, other files, documents, websites, just go ahead and right-click and let's go to the design view. And to insert your hyperlinks, you need to choose a section that you want to insert them in by clicking on that section's bar, like for the report header, so I can insert them here. Then come up here on the Design tab, go to the Controls group, click on Controls, and you're looking for the World. Go ahead and click on Link, and then it says OK. By default, it wants to look on your computer if you have files, documents, other databases, or even an image that you want to be able to add as a link. Then when you click on the link, in this case, it'll pull up the book's image. So if it's not in the exercises folder, then click on the drop down arrow and you can search other folders or start from the desktop. And then go ahead and double click whatever's on the desktop to get inside of that and then go, oh, okay, let's do the book's image. Double click, adds it in the upper left hand corner. So hover over the border of it so you can click and drag and move it over here. Let's do it again, only this time. Let's see, Controls, Link. Let's come down here and add a website address, www.dreamforce.us. I like that. And let's go ahead and click off. And if you'd like, you can add, well, here's the text to display versus the actual address. So if you just want the text up here to say, let's get rid of that, Dreamforce, then when they click on it, it'll actually take them to the website. You can do that. And you can actually add a screen tip to it. So when they hover over the link, a little pop-up says, hey, this is my website, or this will give you more details about such and such. So click on screen tip and say, my website, so please stay a while in your visit. We enjoy ya. Go ahead and click okie dokie, then click OK, and there you go. Dreamforce. Let me hover over the border to click and drag and move it to the right. Okay, now to go ahead and get it to work, where we can click on it and it actually takes us to the image or the website. The only view that this will work in, obviously not the design view because you click in here and it does nothing, is, let me right click on the tab here, the report view. Because in the layout view, it's just a layout, you're just clicking and dragging to move it around. Can't click on it to open up that link. But hey, look at that, when you hover over it, the pop-up comes up, my website, and so please stay a while in your visit. Let's go ahead and right click. Can't do it in the print preview because what you see there, well, it's going to come out of your printer. You can click to zoom out, click to zoom in, right click, and the one view that it does work, report view. So let's go ahead and click on the image. It says, hey, this location may not be safe. A location on my computer that I didn't identify as something safe that I can fix later on, but hey, I trust it. It's my computer. Yes. There's the image. Oh, that's nice. Close out. How about, let me click off, can't see it, the website. Hover over it, gives you the pop-up. Click on it. It's my website. Very nice. Buy more products. And then, of course, to get rid of your hyperlinks, right-click, go to the design view. With it selected, hit the delete key, and it's gone. Click on the border, delete, and we're back to where we started. I'm in the report view, and to print this report off, I need to go to the print preview to find and click on the print button. But before I do that, I want you to know that as clean as the report view looks, like it all fits onto one page, or at least width-wise, the fields, that does not represent what's going to be coming out of your printer. For example, let's come up here, right-click, and go to that print preview. And you'd think, by looking at it, it looks the same as the report view. Let me just come up here and click on print. If you do that, you may have an uh-oh here because you don't judge a report in the print preview based upon the first page. So if you go to the second page, well, there you go. Let me click on it to zoom out. We got the lines for the titles and the labels bleeding over. So when I go back to page 1, looks like the right-hand margin, well, we got some space, so if I shrink it, it'll bring over those lines and fit them all onto one page, so you don't have that bleeding over. And to fix it, I can do it one of a couple of ways. Since I'm in the print preview, just come up here to the page size group, and I can work with the margins, click on the drop-down arrow, and choose one of these default templates here. It should tell me the size, it did before, of the right margin that I had, which is a couple of inches. But in any case, you can work with one of the default templates and choose one of these, or if you want to type it in numerically, then click off, come up here in the page layout group, and click on the page setup. And there you go, you can type it in whatever you want for the top, bottom, left, or right, and there's right 2 inches. Now you can do that here, or let me click cancel, close out of the print preview. You can also do it in the design view. In fact, let me right click, go to the design view. In the design view, it'll tell you here if it can't squeeze everything into your, well, this is an 8.5 by 11, width-wise, the 8.5 inch page, that it bleeds over to the second page. And that can be found up here in the upper left-hand corner, that gray box. Well, the black box within that gray box means that it's selected. So if I come out here and deselect it, that gray box right there represents the report. So it's the properties of the report. So if you click on it, it selects the report. I'm not talking about like if you select everything within the report here, like if I come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the selection group and say Select All. Well, it selects all the fields, labels, the text boxes within it, but it doesn't actually select the report and bring up the properties of it, so that doesn't work. You just have to go ahead and click on that gray box. If you double click, it brings up the properties and it says you actually have the selection of the report. So there it is, close out. But once you actually click in the box, it puts a black box to let you know you actually have the report selected. And then if you notice that green triangle, that lets you know there's an issue. Let me click out. And then when you actually click on the selection, it'll expand it, well, the issue with the tag down below, that when you hover over it, tells you that the report width is greater than the page width, possibly causing extra blank pages to be printed. That's the long-winded answer. When I click on the drop-down arrow, there's the short. Report width is greater than the page width. All right. So in the report view, before you go to print preview, if you see that green fluorescent, go ahead and select the report box, and then you got the tag. So you can fix it here as well by coming up, clicking on the page setup tab, because in the page layout group, or well, page size, you got your margins, but in the page layout group, we can do page setup. And let's see, by shrinking this, I think it bled over these lines here for the title and also the labels by about a 1/4 inch. So if I shrink it down to just 1 inch, it should take care of it, right? Or let's just do 0.25. That should really take care of it, right? Click Okie dokie. And it's not taking care of it because it's still there, right? I mean, we gave it more room, so why is there an issue? Well, let's go ahead and scroll over, and it's because of the grid. Even though I've got the margin set that it should fit everything within the 8.5 by 11, if the grid is stretched way beyond the margins, then it wants to go beyond it. And so we may still run into issues. Well, let's check it. Go ahead and right-click, go to the print preview. You see, that grid is giving us issues. The section width is greater than the page width. So the section width meaning we got a bunch of sections, right? And we stretched them within the sections. At least we took that grid out where it's way out there beyond the width of the page. So if we clicked Okie dokie and we went to page 2, yeah, we're getting blank pages because now we don't have the lines bleeding over. They're pulled in because of the margin, but because the grid extending beyond it, well, is providing blank space there. And I don't like that. So let's go ahead and right-click, go back to the design view. And you can see it's still giving us an issue here. And once we fix the margins, we just need to come over here and click and drag the grid in as tight as we can, as snug as we can. And look, see there, it doesn't have an issue. Well, if I came back out here and stretched it out far enough, now it has an issue. In fact, let's see what it looks like in the layout view. Right-click, go to the layout. Is there any indicator here? Well, that line there is where it's breaking, and then we got some blank space. So we're going to have this on one page, then the blank space on the next. In fact, if I come up here to the page setup, and I go back to 2 inches, watch what happens to this line when I click Okie dokie. It moves in, right? So the layout view is another view to look at it, that dashed line as far as your margins go on the right, and if it squeezes everything within, well, the first page. And this is all going to be cut off, and we're back to where we started. So let's go ahead and be done with this video and clean it up. And, well, let's see if we can undo that. Well, it's not going to undo it, maybe. Let's click on Page Setup, and then just go back to 0.25, hit Enter. Then right-click, go to the Design View, scroll over. Don't leave any extra space here. Click and drag that grid in. And then if it disappears, that fluorescent green triangle, then it looks like we're good to go. So right-click, and we want to test it, Print Preview. Okay, remember, don't judge a report based upon the first page. It looks good, right? But let's go to the second page. Oh, that's nice. We don't have any bleeding going on from any leftovers from one page over to the next. As you recall in an earlier training video, each field you have in your table has its own set of properties. And you can view the properties for each field one of a couple of ways. And one way is when you're in the table's datasheet view, as I'm in here now, is to come up here and click on its related contextual fields tab, and it's right there, the properties group, for that selected field. Well, any cell within that column, as long as you're in the column that represents the field you want to view the properties thereof or make some changes to. And you've just got a few properties here. If you want all the properties, then you want to go ahead and change this view and go to the design. Right-click on the tab, Design View, select the field up above, and then down below, you'll see the properties for that selected field. And you can see its employee ID. So down below, the field size hasn't changed. It's 6, and you've got additional properties. Now, what I want to do in this training video is to show you how you can control the front-end user's input. So it's a little bit more efficient. You get more accurate data as opposed to them just typing in whatever they want. But let me start off with something simple. For example, let's go back to the datasheet view. You have the EE for employee ID in all uppercase. If you want it all in lowercase, and you're like, oh man, now I have to go back and retype all this in lowercase. No, we can fix that. Or if you come down here and you want to start typing in lowercase and have it automatically convert to uppercase, well, let me show you the trick. Hit the escape key a couple of times to get out of that record being written. And let's go back to the design view. And then down below in the properties for the selected field employee ID, so make sure that's selected, and then come down below, click in the format field. And to have anything in uppercase or lowercase, as far as the text goes, you just need a greater than or less than symbol in that format field. So if I do less than, then everything that's already in that field, that's text-wise, will be converted to lowercase. So let me hit the Tab key, and after I hit the Tab key, you get this little flash, this tag here, lightning bolt. It's the property update options. So if I don't do anything else and I just convert it here, it'll only affect this table. But remember, you have other objects that are based upon this table, like your forms and reports, that if you want to update there as well, then you have to click on this little tag here and say update format everywhere that this employee ID is used, not just the table. So we can get everything in lowercase into our reports and forms. So I'm not going to click on it, so it just keeps it to this table. Not that I have any forms or reports here to update to, so if I did try it, we'll watch what happens. You got nothing here. You have no other objects that are based upon this table. So, okay, click Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and click on the View button. Oh, you're supposed to save your work before you flip. After you make a change here, that's fine. Do it for me. Click Yes, save it now, and there you go. All the uppercase E's are now lowercase. Let's go ahead and change that. Right-click, go to the Design View, and if we just flip this around from less than, hold down the Shift key, hit the period to the greater than, and then hit the Tab key, and upon exit, you get that tag to go ahead and update it, not just within the table, but everywhere this employee ID is found in the other objects. So I don't have any others there. We're good. Click on the View button. Be sure to save it, yes. Everything's in uppercase. And when I type in a new record and I put it all in lowercase, I don't have to use my pinky to hold down the Shift key, so I can save myself time when it comes to data entering. Let's just go ahead and save it right now. Hold down the Shift key, hit Enter, and it automatically converts it from lowercase to uppercase. Oh, that's so nice. Okay, let's do some more. How about for the hours here? Every time I enter in a new employee, for the most part, they're going to be at 40 hours a week. So I don't want to have to type it in for the most part. Maybe just automatically have it default to 40 hours. And then on the rare occasions that we hire somebody less than 40 hours, then I can just make a simple change. So to set the default for a field, let's go ahead and right-click, go to the Design View, and well, make sure you've got the field selected you want the default for. We don't want employee ID, we want hours. Then we want to come down here and change the default value from 0 to 40, hit the Tab key, and that's it. Now, how about if we do something a bit more than just saying, okay, the default's 40 hours. Let's say that anybody who works for a company cannot earn more than $30 an hour. Because if they do, then, well, that's just too much. In any case, to go ahead and set that value for their pay rate. So this is for their hours. We'll see that in just a minute, the default value. Let's come up here and select pay rate, and then come down below and say that instead of the default value, the validation rule, we're going to write in an expression that says you cannot put anything more than $30 here. So you can do less than, so it can be less than, then type in 30. But what if you want it to be exactly 30 or less? Well, then we need to go back and type in the equals after the less than symbol. Remember, for the operator less than or greater than, if you want it to be equal to, you have to type in the equals always after it, not before it. So this expression that we wrote says, the rule says, for this field, you can't type in anything that's over 30. It can equal 30 or be less than 30, so less than or equal to 30. And then if I just type that in there and somebody tried to type in more, it would just give them an error. Well, for example, let's go ahead and click on the View button. We must save it. Now, this is interesting because what's happening here is that the data integrity rules have been changed. What that means is it says that for the validation rule, everything has to be $30 or less. Well, I have a few employees that are over $30. I think there's at least one. And so do you want the existing data to be tested with the new rules? No, we'll grandfather them in. So if they earn more than $30 an hour, well, we'll leave them as such. So we'll say no. Well, there you go. This guy right here, the first employee, $75 an hour. Well, that's horrifying. And then look at this guy, over 30, and that guy 55. So we won't have that test those. We'll leave those alone. But for any new ones that we type in, when we go down below, or you can go ahead and click on New Record, automatically takes us down below, that we can't type in something that's over $30 an hour. And there you go. We've got our default value. Remember, for the hours, it's already there, 40 hours. So if I type in EE 1-65, hit the Tab key, puts it in uppercase, there's 40, don't have to type it in. Then go over the pay rate, And let's type in something more than 30, like 31, and then hold the Shift key down, hit Enter to save it, and it says one or more values are prohibited by the validation rule. It's got to be less than or equal to 30, and then enter a value that the expression can accept. Well, in any case, you can have a message that's a lot cleaner than that. So let's go ahead and click OK, hit the Escape key a couple of times to get rid of that, and let's go ahead and go back to the design view. And for our rule, we can actually have validation text that says if somebody doesn't meet what we set here by typing in over 30, we can have our own prompt message that's just nice and clean and uplifting, saying, please don't do this again. Or how about this? Let's go ahead and type in, must enter a value under 30. Or if you've got a lot more to type in and you get to the end, you can right click and zoom in on it, and you got a lot more space there, right? Okay, click cancel. So now we can go ahead and test that. Come up here, click on the View button. Got to save it. Let's scroll down and we type in EE1-66, hit the Tab key, and let's type in 31. Hold down the Shift key, hit Enter. Okay, isn't that cleaner? Must enter a value under 30. I like it. Let's click OK. And so if I do 30, hold down the Shift key, hit Enter, it accepts it. Let's go ahead and right-click, go back to the design view. Now this next field property is only found in those fields that have the data type set to text. It doesn't matter if it's long or short, as long as it's text. Go ahead and select that field, and then down below in its corresponding field properties, the one that's proprietary to that is the allow zero length, and it's set to yes. Now some database designers will use this, but you could be creative and probably get by without it. In any case, the definition of it is that it'll allow a string that contains no characters. Well, how does that work? If you type in a pair of quotes with no space in between it, that's a string that contains no characters. I think a good example of why you might want to use this is some database designers use this to indicate that the data enterer knows of no value that exists for that field. Instead of them just skipping over the field, they'll just type in open and close quotes with no space, because if they skip over it, it'll enter in a null or empty value. At least this way, when we set it to yes, as it's already set, you can see it there, it'll allow the double quotes with no space in between them or zero length string to be added to this field. Now, when you're in the datasheet view, the data enterer, and they enter in open, close quotes with no space, you won't be able to see it, but it'll be there. So that way, when you're doing queries and you want to enter in some criteria that find me all the fields that have a zero length string, you type it in, it pulls it up, as opposed to all those fields that they just skipped over and didn't enter in a thing at all. So for this example, the department, maybe we just type in zero length string, indicating that the employee doesn't belong to a department. That way we did check as opposed to leaving it blank. And then some other data enterer coming in here and going, we still need to find out. Like I said, you can use this or you can be creative and just say, look, type in the text, no department, and that works. Now, aside from setting the validation rules in the design view, like for our pay rate, down below, it's got to be less than or equal to 30. You can also do it in the datasheet view. Let's just come up here, right-click on the tab, go to the datasheet view, and just come up here to the Related Contextual Fields tab, and come over here to the Field Validation group. And it's for the pay rate, right? So let me go ahead and click in any record in that column for that field, and come up here and click on the validation drop-down arrow, and there you go. You're looking at these two up above. You can see that they're highlighted. That means that there's a validation rule being applied as well as a message. So if you want to take a look at it, go ahead and click on it. It's right there. You can go ahead and make a change to it if you want. Let me click cancel, click on the drop-down arrow, and there's the message. You can change that. Let me click cancel. Let's go back to the design view, and let me show you. Let's go ahead and delete it here, and we'll save it. Go back to the datasheet view, and let's go ahead and go to pay rate, fields, validation. There's nothing there, right? So it disappeared. So what you do in the design view will display it here, and we can also do it here. Field validation rule has to be less than or equal to 30. Go ahead and click Okie dokie. Okay, it says existing data violates the new settings for the validation rule. Well, is that less than 30? No, so it's in violation. Do you want to keep the testing with the new settings? To keep the new setting and continue testing, click Yes. To revert to the old setting and continue testing, click No. To stop testing, click Cancel. Well, we can go ahead and say yes and just move through that, but it doesn't change what the current value is, even though it's violating the rule. So let's come back up here, click on the validation. It's in play, so you can click on it and see, oh, there we go. But how about some text? So you can click on the drop-down arrow, field validation message, and say, hey, or whatever text when they type in something more than 30 that wasn't previously there. Whatever message it says, hey, don't do this, it's got to be less than 30. You get the point, right? I mean, you can do it here in the datasheet view or in the design. So same thing, click okie dokie. When I come down here and I do EE1-75, hit the tab key. Let's type in 32. Hold down the shift key and hit enter to save it. And it says, hey, so you get your message there as well. Click okie dokie. And then to get out of this, hit the escape key once, hit it twice, and it didn't save it. Well, I could have saved it if I had it less than 30, but we'll leave it as is. And then something else up here, click on the validation drop-down rule. You have another set. Well, what's the difference between the two? Well, these two are for the fields. See where it says field, field, and this one's for the record, pun intended. And here's the example. You can go ahead and write an expression for the entire record that pits one field against another, as opposed to just focusing on one field. So you can say, okay, for the entire record, the start date can't be greater than the end date. It has to be earlier than the end date, because if the start date is older than the end date, comes after the end date, okay, well, that's a problem. Another good example is like if you had the order date less than or equal to the ship date, because you can, have the order the same day that you want to ship it, right? You just can't ship something that you haven't received an order yet. So the order date has to come earlier or on the same day that you plan to ship it. And so, well, it's for the record here, the validation rules. Let's go ahead and right-click, go back to the design view. And you can see down below, we don't have anything for the record. We just have for the pay rate field, the validation rule that we can set up just for that field. So as far as setting up for the record, we can go ahead and do that in the datasheet view on its related contextual field tab over in, well, right-click, datasheet, field validation. As you recall in an earlier training video, when we added fields to our tables, we set the data type for each field, or the type of data that can be entered into each field. So for like the employee ID, I believe that's short text. Well, to find out exactly what the data type has been set for that field, we can right-click on the tab, go to the design view, and there we go, short text. And then for hours, we can only enter in the type of data numbers, and for pay rate, currency, and so on. Now there's only one data type that allows you to keep track of the history when that data type is assigned to a field, and that's the long text data type. And I only have one here, and it's right there for comments, which makes sense because when it comes to comments, I don't want short text that limits me to a total of 255 characters. I want something longer. Now, in addition to that, down below in its field properties, you get the append only. It's set to no. Go ahead and click in it, and over to the right, it'll tell you what it's about, in this case in the form of a question that says, would you like to collect history on this field? So if you want to keep track of any changes you make, or the history, then go ahead and set it to yes. And you can either click on the drop-down arrow and set it to yes, select it, or let me click off. You can double-click to toggle through all the options. Since there's only two, or the other option, one double-click will suffice. And then once we have it set it to yes, we're good to go. Come up here, click Save, change your views, and any changes you make here in the comments field, and only the comments field, will it keep track of the history. So before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at this one, last pay raise, a comment that's already there prior to me turning on this feature. So when I right-click on it, I get the Show Column History. Now that's not available unless I set that feature to yes. Once I set it to yes, then it gives me the Show Column History. Now don't get confused on the Show Column History, because showing the column history doesn't show you the history for the entire column of the field. It just means the actual field. So when you right-click on a particular record in that column, you can show the history for that. In this case, the last pay raise in 2007, click on it, and there's nothing there. So that brings up a good point. If I make a change here, will it show the original, or just the new change? Because I didn't see anything there. Well, let's go ahead and try it. Let's change it something simple from pay raise in 2007 to 2008. Hold down the Shift key, hit Enter. It accepted the change. Let's go ahead and right-click and say, OK, show us the history for that. Last pay raise in 2008. So it doesn't show us the original, which could be a problem if you want to know what the original was. Was it 2007, 2006? Well, how do I know? What you can do is that, let me close out. If you already have a bunch of, well, in this case, comments set up, and you want to take a snapshot of the original, so that way you always have it, and when you make changes to it, you can always revert back to, well, in this case, 2007. What you can do is go ahead and do a little cheating. In other words, go ahead for part-time. Let's say I want to change it to full-time, but I want part-time to be part of the history. So I'll just come in here, delete the T, and then add the T back in. So I haven't changed anything, but Access doesn't know that. So when I hold down the Shift key and hit Enter, and then I, well, right-click on it and go to Show Column History, there you go, part-time. So any changes I make thereafter will also show up. So if I go from part-time to full, hold down the Shift key, hit Enter, and then I right-click and go to Show Column History, hey, we got the original and we have the latest change. So that's the workaround. I mean, obviously, it'd be a heck of a lot easier before you started entering data into a long text data type field and you set that option to show column history. Well, obviously, it's better to turn this feature on before you start entering in data because once you type it in, it'll keep track of the original. In any case, there's the workaround. And if I go ahead and turn it off, let's come up here, go to the design view, come down here, double click, change it to no, click on the view button, say yes, you want to save it. It says, if you do this, you're going to lose a lot of history. Are you sure? Okay, yes. So comments are still there, but I don't have a history. When I right click and I go down to, see, it doesn't say show column history. Well, does it remember it if I turn it back on? No. Let me go ahead and click on the design view. Come down here, double click to yes, append only. Click on the view button, be sure to save the changes. Right click on the comments here, show column history. You're starting back from scratch, Zippo. An input mask is a pattern for all data to be entered into a field. So when I'm looking at a field, do they have patterns? And if so, I can create an input mask that will tell the front-end user, hey, I would like to have it in this pattern or this display. So for example, when you look at employee ID, there's a pattern. First two letters are EE for employee, and then a number, a dash, and then two numbers. And another is like the zip code. So instead of having just 5 digits, I've got a dash and 4. And for like the phone number, we've got the area code, 3 digits, dash, and then 4. Now, before I started the video, I created an input mask for the zip code field. So when the user is typing in information and hits this field right here, there's an input mask. In other words, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, how many digits do I enter into this field? Oh, sure, you can cheat and look up above and go, okay, it's the 5-digit zip code plus 4 more. But if this was the first field in the table, you wouldn't really know, except when you see that you start typing and go, okay, I'll type in the first 5 digits, and you're like, what? There's still more space. Oh, I guess he wants more. So let me go ahead and get the rest of that zip code there, the last 4 digits. So that way, when you're finished typing over the mask and it disappears, your input has finished. And then you can go ahead and continue on. Let me hit the escape key to get out of this because I don't want to save it. And so let's go ahead and create one using an input mask for the phone number. So when I click in there, well, how many numbers do I put in and where? So we can go ahead and control the user's input, or at least give them an idea by having a mask. They can go ahead and type over it. When you're done typing over it and you don't see any more, your input is finished. So for the phone field, let's go ahead and come up here, right click, go to the design view, and let's go to the phone. And then down below in its field properties, it's right there, input mask. Go ahead and click in its adjacent field, and then click on the 3 dots there, the build button. And before I click on it, if you click in any one of these fields here, it says over to the right, it gives you a synopsis, like what that's about. And this is a pattern for all data to be entered into this field. Okay, that's nice. Now that we have a little bit more clarity, let's go ahead and click on it. And there we go. We have some default masks here. And it says which input mask matches how you want the data to look. Well, it's going to be the phone number Well, that worked out well. Let's go ahead and with it selected, come down below and try it. So click in the field and that's what it looks like. Oh, that's a nice try. I'll go ahead and just type it in. And, ooh, that's so fancy. And so you can go ahead and do it that way. And if you like it, go ahead and click next and it'll allow for a little bit of tweakage. And there's the phone number, the input mask. And we'll go over the coding in just a little bit. But for right now, down below it says when it comes to the placeholder character, the default was the underscore. So when they came down below and they started typing, it was all the underscore. As soon as you're done typing and you don't see any more underscores, well, then your data input has been completed, except I skipped the first two. Let's go ahead and delete that. And let's change that to, what else you got? Oh, not too much, but let's do pound symbols. And then go ahead and try it. Come down below and, oh, that's nice. It's really definitive now. So when those pound symbols are all done, then I'm done. Okay, I'll go with that. Let's click next. Now when it comes to these built-in templates here, you don't have to have the symbols stored in the database. You can actually store the data without the symbols and it will still show the symbols. So I'll say without the symbols, try to save a little bit of space and then go ahead and click next. Hey, that's it, we're done. Click finish. Let's go ahead and take it for a test drive. Well, wait a second. And there's the symbols down below, the coding. I'll go over that in just a second here. Let's go ahead and click on the view button. Save our work. Let's go ahead and scroll down, or I could have clicked on the new record button to get to the last line. And then go ahead and click in the phone field and hey, there's our mask. So 801, 555, 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as I'm done typing over the mask, my input work has been completed. Nice. Let's go ahead and hit the escape key. And let's come over here and do another one, this time one that's not pre-built for us. Let's do it for our own employee ID. So when I click in here, if I didn't have anything up above to reference, like it was a new table, or I'm in a form on a new record, and I haven't seen what the others looked like, then let's go ahead and put an input mask, kind of give them an idea of, well, the pattern of what needs to be typed in the employee ID field. As you can see, there's none there. So let's go ahead and go back to the design view, go to the employee ID field, come down below, click in the input mask, the field properties for the selected employee ID field. Come over here, click on the build button, and, well, it's already right there, but let's pretend that we don't have that, okay? And let's start from scratch. Click on edit list. And you can go ahead and go through these records here, and there's a total of 4. Well, I created the employee ID here, but just ignore that. We're going to start from scratch. Let's say that it's not there, and click on New Blank Record. So this will be our employee ID, well, number 2, since I already have the first one in there. And now for the input mask. Okay, we're going to start with the exclamation point, and what that does is it allows the mask to be filled in from left to right. So when we get to the field, it starts over on the left-hand side. Well, that's nice. Okay. And then let's go ahead and type in LL. Now, L represents text. So we want to make sure that we have one for each letter in the employee ID, EE. So I put in 2 L's. And then we want a number. So I'll type in a 0. Oh, there we go. Now you can see it. And the 0 is for single digits. And then we want a dash. And then, of course, we want 2 more single digits after that. And then hit the tab key. And then the placeholder. Well, you can do the underscore or you can do the pound symbol, but they may be confused if I do the pound symbol because they may think, oh, the pound symbol for the LL, I was supposed to type in numbers. It's not going to be perfect, but it's just a pattern for them to look at. And I can come down below and you have to give it sample data. If you don't give it sample data, it won't save. So we can go ahead and do EE155. Okay, great. Now there's not a save button here, but it will save. So when I close out, if I go ahead and go back to edit the list, how many records do I have? Instead of 5, I have 6 now. So if I want to go back and make changes, then I can come over here and, well, there's the employee ID for that one, and here's the one that we did just now. So employee ID number 2, close out. Let's go ahead and scroll down to find it. So there's the one I did before the training video. Here's the one that we did just now, employee ID number 2. We can come down below and try it. And if I try to type in a number, it requires text. Now remember, the first 2 are characters, so it has to be letters, so EE. And then the rest has to be numbers. So if I try to type in text, like another E, I get this bong. You can go ahead and try it. You'll get the bong. And then 155. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and click next. And there we go, employee ID, the placeholder. You can actually change it if you want at this point, but I'll leave it as underscore. And of course, you can go ahead and try it again, type it in, and then click next, and it will store it without symbols. Now, when it comes to a custom mask, if I store it without symbols, it won't add the dash. So let me show you. Click Finish, go ahead and click on the View button, save our work, and click on New Record. So when I type in EE, and I type in 155, and let's see, hold down the Shift key, hit Enter to see if it saves it. Okay, didn't have to enter in anything else, it saved it. But it didn't store the symbol. Okay, that's a problem. Let's go ahead and right-click on this and delete the record, say yes. Let's go back to the design view, and let's go ahead and edit this by clicking on its Build button, and then going down to number 2. Select, click Next, click Next. This time we want the symbols to be stored, and click Finish, and then click View. Of course, we got to save our work. Come down here, click on New Blank Record, EE 156. Hit the Tab key, and hey, there's the symbol. Oh, that's nice. And then, of course, go ahead and type in all the rest of your fields. And remember, when you get to those other fields that have the input mask, you're done inputting the data in the field when the masking has been completely eliminated. No more mask. I'm done. And then our phone number, 801, ta-ta-ta. Shift Enter, and, well, I'll come back and enter in the rest. Maybe. Well, let me just go ahead and right-click and delete it. A problem you may find is that when you're inputting data into a field, that if you're not familiar with the contents of that field, then what do you do? So for example, like the department field, what are these codes? TR, SL, CO, AD? Well, to find out, I could open up the departments table, double-click, and go, let's see, TR is for training. Oh, okay. And if I need to make some updates, like assign somebody to the marketing department, what's the code for that? Oh, it's MK. Well, I can toggle back and forth in between the two until I have them all memorized, or better yet, how about if we go ahead and convert the field here from the default data type that it's set to, I think it's short text, to the lookup field. What that does is that when you click inside the field, it'll create a drop-down arrow that when you click on it, it'll have a list of all the department codes and their corresponding department names. Doesn't that sound nifty? Of course it does. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and right-click on the tab, go to the design view, and go to the data code, data type field, short text. We want to change that to the lookup. Okay, using the lookup wizard, because in the wizard it's going to ask us a bunch of questions. Based upon our answers, we'll get what we want, which is the department code and the department name. So let's go ahead and click on it. Oh, it says it can't do it. Why? Because it's in a relationship. Before you can go ahead and do a lookup field, we have to break it off. Okay, let's go ahead and close out. Come up here, click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Relationships group, click on Relationships, and there we go. We have the payroll related to the departments table through the code here, the primary key to the foreign key, and so we got to break it off. That way it can go ahead and reestablish or reconnect and give us that option, and I'll talk about those options if we do want to create that relationship. So let's go ahead and right-click on that relationship and left-click Delete, and it says, are you sure you permanently want to delete this? Yes. It says it can't do it because we have the payroll table open, and you can't break off relationships when the tables are open. Let's go ahead and close out of them. So click on it and close out, or you can right-click on that one, and, well, let's close that one. And we won't save the changes there. Now with them closed, or looking the other way, we can go ahead and sever the relationship. And right-click, and then go down to Delete, and say yes, and it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and close out of here and open up the payroll. Or I could have right-clicked on it and gone right to the design view, which is where we got to go anyways. So we can go ahead and change the data type from short text for the department code field to a lookup field by using the lookup wizard. Okay, first question. The wizard creates a lookup field which displays a list of values you can choose from. How do you want your lookup field to get its values? Do you want to type it in, or do you want to go ahead and look up the values from another table or query? Well, we want to look it up from the departments table, get the code and also the corresponding department name. So we'll leave the selection and click Next. And then there's a list of all the tables. So is it based upon this table, or is it a query, or you can look at both. Let's go back to tables here, and it's departments, so that's already selected. Great. Click Next. And it says which fields of the departments table contain the values you want to include in your lookup field, and the fields you select will become columns in your lookup. So when you click in that field, you'll have a column of department code and also department name. Oh, that's nice. So we got to include both. Let's click on the double arrows. Both of them are there. Click Next. And it says, what sort order do you want for the items in your list box? So I want to sort it by department code. Let's go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow, department code, and it's ascending, or you can click on it and go descending, Z's down to the A's, but I want it ascending. And so let's go ahead and click Next. And it says, how would you like the columns in your lookup field? Well, the way they are, except it recommends that you hide the key column, the primary key, which is the code. I want to see the code because I'm actually storing the values by code. And so if I can't see the code, it won't store the values by code, just by department name. So let's go ahead and uncheck that so I can see the code. Oh, that's nice. All right. And I don't like so much gappage here or wasted space. So I can hover over the right-hand side of the column header department code until I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions and click and drag it in, or double click really fast to do a best fit. And so it fits to the longest text within the column, which is the name of the column, department code. And let's do it for the department name. Hover over the right-hand side until I can see arrows, double click. Okay, looks good. Click Next. And then it says when you select a row in the lookup field, you can store a value from that row in your database, or you can use the values later to perform an action. So choose a field that uniquely identifies the row, which is going to be the primary key. That's the unique identifier, always is, always has been. So we'll leave it as is here, the department code, primary key code field, and click Next. And we're just about done. It says what label do you want to give your lookup field? I leave it the same name as the field that we had here, department code. And here's where you can establish a relationship. But it doesn't say it that way. It says you want to enable data integrity between the tables. If you don't, there's no relationship, meaning that if I delete some departments, they're gone. It won't do anything in the corresponding table for those departments, so you still have employees in the payroll tagged or assigned to those departments. So what you can do is establish a relationship or data integrity, and the first selection is cascade delete. So if I delete a department like training TR, it'll go into the table that it's related to for data integrity purposes and delete all records that have or are tied to the department code TR for training. And so there's integrity there, so I don't have employees who there is no department for. So when I delete the department, the employees are also gone. But if you're like, oh, wait a second, I don't like that, because you can totally annihilate a department and get rid of it without terminating the employees. So the other option is you can restrict the deletion here, meaning that it won't allow you to delete the code in the lookup table without first changing or deleting all records tied to that specific code. So if I want to delete the TR for training department from the departments table, I first have to reassign those employees to that code in the payroll table to something else, anything else. So I don't have any TRs or that training department tied to anybody in the payroll table. So if I clean all that up and there's nobody in the payroll table that's tied to that department, then I can go ahead and delete that department. To me, that just sounds really nifty. Well, it depends on how you want to work with your data. In any case, I'll go ahead and do cascade delete and say that when my company gets rid of a department, we get rid of everybody. We just don't reabsorb them. They have to reapply. Or you can go ahead and uncheck that, and the other option is to allow multiple values. What that does is that the lookup field will contain checkboxes for multiple selections of the code in the payroll table. So you can have like one employee assigned to more than one department. In any case, I want to go back to my data integrity, cascade delete. So you delete one, it cascades over into the other and gets rid of all the records that have that department tied to it, as it were. And click Finish. The table must be saved before the relationships can be created. You want to save now? Yes. So is the relationship established? Well, let's do a check see. Come up here and click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Relationships group, click on Relationships, and hey, we're back. But now we have a lookup field. You want to see that? Of course you do. Let's go to the payroll and then, well, right click and go to the Datasheet View. So when I'm over here going, okay, we need to change this employee from the TR department. What's the TR department? Click in here. Oh, you get the drop down arrow. Click on it. What's TR? It's training. Oh, that's nice. Now, another thing that we can do, well, let me show you. You can actually change it here and do MK. And then there's the pencil. Shift Enter. Okay, that works. Cool. But what I was thinking here is when you click on the drop down arrow, if you don't know what this column data is, like you want the title for that column, department code, and the department name, we can go ahead and set that up. Let's right click on the tab, go to the design view, and then with the department code selected, and by the way it says short text, you think it would say Lookup Wizard, but it doesn't. So just know that when you change over to use the Lookup Wizard, that it'll keep its former data type there, but it's still doing the lookup. Let's come down below and click on the Lookup tab, and there you go. Display controls the combo box. And I want to come down here and right there, column heads. So do you want the headings for each column, for the department code where you get the heading that says department code? If you do, go ahead and double click to convert it over to say yes. And let's come back up here, click on the view button, say yes, we want to save it. It says payroll has changed since the last time you opened it, either by another user or because another instance of it was opened on your machine. Do you want to go ahead and replace the changes? Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's click in the field here, click on the drop down arrow, and there's the headings. So now I know what I'm looking at in this column over here as opposed to that one. Not that it's too hard to figure out, but hey, you can go ahead and put the labels in there for these columns here. And that's department code. Oh, that's not working for me. Let's go ahead and fix that, shall we? Right click, go to the design view, and let's look down below. We've got the column widths. So maybe I can make that column on the left-hand side of that delimiter. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a semicolon. So that's separating the left column from the right. And that's, let me go ahead and click over there. If I can get in there, let's go ahead and hit the delete key. Oh, it deletes all of them. Okay, it's kind of ghosting on me, but that's okay. We can just go ahead and do 0.7 and then go ahead and do the delimiter, semicolon, and then let's do, how about 1.5? 1.5 inches. Hit the tab key, and then let's click on the view button, say yes, come in here, click on the drop down arrow. Now I can see the department code, the department name, but I have to scroll over. Oh, that's annoying. I don't like scrolling. Let's go ahead and change that. Right click, go back to the design view, and let's look at the list width. How about if we widen that instead of 1.5, which causes us to scroll? Let's go ahead and change that to 2 inches, hit the tab key, and see if that's enough. Click on the view button. Yes, let's save it. Click in it. Click on the drop down. Oh, that's nice. I don't really have to scroll. I could, but well, maybe I need to make it 3 inches. Or go ahead and shrink this up a bit because, you got a lot of space over to the right-hand side here. So in any case, right click, go back to the design view. Instead of 1.5, maybe I can do, if I can get in there and it'll let me do it, 1.25. Is that enough? Hit the tab key. And you're just going back and forth to get it just to look just nifty. There we go. Hey, shrunk it in far enough I don't get the scrolly bar down below and I can see everything. Oh, that's sweet. Let's change you over to sales. Hold down the shift key and hit enter. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.